No. Whoa. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I'm so glad you're joining in on the shenanigans. My name is Jess, and here on my channel, I aim to share tips and tools on healthy living with less hassle so you can focus on more living. I share grocery hauls, what I eat in a day, healthy and easy recipes, as well as just general mama life while of course being copiously caffeinated. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I was kind of reflecting back on my first few months postpartum and thought I'd do just a little bit of video content for all of the new mamas out there. As many of you know, I had my first son, Luca, about 6 months ago. He is 6.5 months old now, and he is just the light of our life. He is so on the move and just doing so many new things, and I'm trying to cherish every single moment. Because he's hitting so many major milestones recently, I've just been reflecting a lot on the first 6 months of his life, my transition into being a new mom, as well as my first few months postpartum and just the joys and the challenges of that. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be sharing with you some of the things that I wish I would have known about that immediate postpartum period. And I mean kind of the first 6 months of transitioning into being a new mom, changes both that impacted me not only physically, but a lot more so mentally. So this video is going to highlight some of the things that I wish I would have been told before entering that time period. So hopefully you can take some of this, either if you are about to become a new mother or if you've gone through this season recently, just to know you're not alone, and hopefully to pass on as tips and tools on some ways that you can better cope with that time period. I also want to, of course, just shoot over a disclaimer. I absolutely love being a mother, and any of you mamas that have gone through it know that it is the most joyful experience and your heart is just exploding every second of the day. I can't even describe it. There's just nothing like it. But of course, along with such a joy and a blessing comes a lot of changes and a lot of adjustments. Nothing that is necessarily something we don't desire to go through or something we don't know about going through, but just something that you never know how it's going to affect you until you're there. So none of this means that if you're going through this, that you don't enjoy being a mother, that you shouldn't be a mother. A lot of these are just normal things that I encountered that I didn't know I was going to encounter, and that I wish I would have been a little bit more forewarned about, because I maybe could have just coped with them a little bit better. One of the first things that I wish I would have been more aware of entering my postpartum season is that the hormone drop is so real. Not just those first couple of days or even the first month after you've had your baby. For me, the hormone drop consisted, I would say, for about the first 4 months of Luca's life. I remember during the first 48 hours just being extremely emotionally malleable, extremely tearful. I was crying left and right. I couldn't think clearly. I felt like things were never going to get better, and then at the same time I was so amazed and joyful about what just happened. But that just kind of shows the up and downs that your body and mind go through. It took 9 months to grow this baby inside your body and to build up all of the immunities and hormones to be able to support that baby's development. And then all of a sudden, that baby is no longer inside of you, and your body doesn't need to support that in the same way anymore. And so your hormones adjust and they drop and they do all these wacky things. I don't even know all the science behind it, but all I know is they make you feel like you are literally losing your mind. I always thought that, yeah, maybe that goes on for the first week or so, and then it just kind of goes away. But for me, I felt the up and down and the drop for about the first 4 months after having Luca. And to some degree, even 6 months later, I still experience that from time to time. It really caught me off guard. It really was something that I wasn't planning on managing for longer than the first couple of weeks. So I wish someone would have told me that it actually can go on for longer than you think, and that's okay. Our bodies are going through so much, and it takes some bodies longer to bounce back than others. And for me, I just wish I would have been told that it is normal for it to go on longer than even just while your body's going through that early recovery process. Another thing that I wish someone would have told me about is that breastfeeding does not always come naturally for some women. For me, I had always planned on breastfeeding my baby because of the many health benefits associated with it. I didn't really think about it as much with a bonding experience, although I know that is part of the motivation for a lot of women to breastfeed. But for me, it was a little bit more health focused because I did think there are many ways to bond with your baby, even if you choose not to breastfeed. But for us, that was going to be the plan from the start. All I've been hearing from my doctors leading up to that point is your body will know what to do. It's such a natural process. Women were made to do this. So of course I assumed that I would have no challenges with that. But for the most part, my body is just going to know what to do and it will do it. That was totally not the case for me. It was a very painful and semi-traumatic experience for me to try to go through that because my body was not doing what it needed to do. My body never produced the milk that it needed to give my baby, and nothing was coming naturally. I was in a lot of pain. I was worried if my baby was even eating. I felt like he had just been placed in my arms and already I can't provide for him in the way that I was told I would naturally be able to do so. So of course, with all of the emotions I was already going through, this on top of it is just something that I wish I would have been better prepared for. But for me, it just is not something that I'm able to do for my baby, which is totally fine. I am such a firm believer of fed is best no matter what the circumstances are. I absolutely respect that, and even so much more now because I don't have the option to breastfeed. For me, I felt like I was very aggressively pushed by lactation staff at the hospital that I delivered at to continue to try to do this when I was in so much pain, not really staying to help me long enough to see if it's working. They weren't checking in with me. I felt totally unsupported and pushed in a direction that I wasn't comfortable with and beyond what my body was capable of. I wish I would have known how to better advocate for myself and better describe that what I was feeling was not just discomfort from doing something that my body had never done before. It was pain because something was wrong, things were being done improperly, and my body was not doing what it naturally needed to do. And it's okay if that's not part of your journey in motherhood. I totally come to terms with that. I'm so grateful for the decision that we made to do formula feeding because I was better able to connect with baby during my feedings because I was not in so much pain and worried about if my baby was even eating because my body wasn't doing what I was told it was going to do. So it doesn't always come naturally, and I don't think many people are going to tell you that. So please understand if that's your story, that is okay. There are so many ways to bond with your baby, and you are still their lifeline in every single way. Another thing that I probably should have known about, but didn't really put much thought into how it would apply in a postpartum period, is to be direct to other people on how they can help you. I think a lot of times it's easy for us to assume that other people automatically know what we need because they love us. That's not necessarily the case. Someone could know you very well, but you've never gone through this season of life and how that would affect your mind and your body. So you might not even have known what you would have needed until you got into that situation. I think a lot of people who have not been through a birthing or childhood experience don't necessarily know how to best help you, but they want to help you and they genuinely want to love on you specifically during this season. Or on the flip side, you may have people who have gone through that experience in their life but had a very different experience than you did. So the things that they might be trying to do to help you may not necessarily be what you need. It's all about trying to be specific with your support system on how they could support you, because in all likelihood, they may genuinely want to help you, but either don't know what to do or are doing something that is not being taken in as helpful from you. Personally, for me, something that a lot of people wanted to help me with and offered to help me with was, here, let me take care of Luca and watch the baby so you can rest or just get things done that you need to. For me, that's not what I wanted during that season. He was just brand new in my life, and all I wanted to do was literally be around him every second and just stare at him and take in this blessing that I had been given, that I didn't want to share my time necessarily with him during that time. What would have been more helpful for me is if someone would have asked, hey, what are some chores I could come and do around your house for a couple hours so that you don't have to worry about doing that this week and you can just focus on being with your son? That could have been easily amended by me being more direct on what I need from people and what would be actually helpful for me during that time, because everyone had amazing intentions and wanted to love on me. Something I wished I would have made more of a priority is to take as long of a maternity leave from work as I could have possibly done. I feel like this severely impacted my postpartum experience, especially from more of a mental and emotional level. I was really planning it based on financials, how long could we afford for me to take a maternity leave? How could I exhaust my PTO so that I could really reap the financial benefits from having to be off work so we wouldn't, be in a tough situation coming off of all of these medical bills. So that's what I was thinking in my mind that maternity leave needed to provide us with, was a little bit of financial stability while I physically recovered. Going through that period, I needed more time. I really needed more time before returning to work, and it was so challenging for me to return to work. And I think it would have been no matter how long of a maternity leave I would have taken, but I really do feel that if I would have taken a longer leave, I don't think I would have struggled as much as I did with returning to work to the intense degree that I did. I wish that I would have given myself permission to advocate and say, I need more time. I'm not ready. I don't think I could be the best employee right now because my time is needed in this area for a little while longer, or I'm still not adjusting to the point where I can be a full-time employee right now. And I think part of the thing is you never know how you're going to react or what you are going to need until you get there. So if there's anything I wish I would have known postpartum, before I hit that postpartum period, it's give yourself a longer time frame for a leave than you think you might need. I thought I'd be ready to jump right back into the workforce and that I'd be ready to go full force 40 hours a week after 8 weeks. That was totally not the case for me, and I was really setting myself up for a very, very challenging transition, which it was. So I wish I would have been forewarned. Give yourself more time than you actually think you need, and be willing to make some financial sacrifices in order to make that happen. Maternity leave and finances, while very important, shouldn't necessarily create the timeline of your maternity leave. It should really be about your body and your mind healing and giving yourself an opportunity to adjust to the huge identity shift in being a new mom. Something that still really stands out to me that I just in my heart want all mamas to know and understand is that it can be very common for your body to bounce back more quickly than your mind after you've become a new mom. I more so was under the impression that it takes your body a long time to bounce back from being pregnant, giving birth, specifically in terms of the weight as well. And yes, it has been a different experience losing weight postpartum than it had been losing weight before getting pregnant. And that's a story for another day. But one thing that I did not expect was the large amount of time it takes for your mind and your emotions to bounce back. To me, I was more so focused on helping my body bounce back from being pregnant and delivering than I was focusing on helping my mind and my emotions being bounced back. So I didn't necessarily have a lot of supports in place to help with that. Physically, I did have, an appropriate amount of time that I wanted to let my body rest, but then I had certain activities and exercises I wanted to get back into to get my body back to a healthy weight range. I had certain meals and meal plans and freezer meals. I had put tons of time into doing that so that I had a plan in place for how to fuel my body appropriately. I didn't really have a lot of supports or a plan in place to help support my mind. For example, I didn't really have a mental health practitioner that I was already set up with to maybe help me work through this transition. I didn't have any sort of maybe the thought of medication supports in place that would help me if I was struggling to adjust. I didn't have a lot of thoughts toward how I was going to be able to balance in my mind working full time plus being a mama. I was thinking more financially how that would look versus how I would actually divide my energy and my heart and my mind. So to me, I wish someone would have emphasized a little bit more for me on getting the supports and the tools in place that helps your mind bounce back from being pregnant and being a new mama than placing so much focus on how to help your body physically bounce back. What I needed was more support on what do I need to have in place in order to help my mind come back from that intense transition. So for me, my mind did not bounce back as quick as my body has been bouncing back, which is usually not what a lot of people will tell you. This next one is something that, as someone who works in the mental health field, I wish I would have been better equipped on this. The statement that postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety doesn't necessarily begin right after you've brought your baby home. Sometimes it can take months or even longer for those symptoms to kick in and for you to realize that you might be going through some postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. It made sense in terms of like a stress to body functioning relationship that if I were to be experiencing postpartum depression, it would happen during those initial few weeks when the baby's not sleeping through the night, where I'm barely sleeping, where my hormones are so up and down, where I've had to leave my job and all my sense of normalcy, where my body is still recovering from so much and I'm still learning how to feed, how to change, how to make him stop crying, like all of these things. I would have figured if I was going to be experiencing that, I would have started having those symptoms during the thick of that, those first few weeks when your body and mind are just in complete shock and your whole entire world has changed. So once I made it through those first few weeks without really experiencing any of those symptoms, I kind of thought I was in the clear. I thought that wouldn't be part of my journey. But at about the 8-week mark, I started to have really intense symptoms of postpartum depression. And for me, it kind of felt like maybe it was something I was doing wrong, or something that I wasn't thinking right about, or I wasn't just doing the right actions in order to make this not happen, because I thought that if that were really postpartum depression, I would have had it in the thick of that huge postpartum transition. It wasn't for me until I had to return back to work and try to juggle both in my time, my energy, and in my mind as being a working mother full time while caring for a brand new baby, that's when I started to experience some of those symptoms. And thankfully, I was able to recognize those symptoms and reach out to my doctor and get some support through that. But I would think that if someone was not maybe as well versed in the mental health field as I am, they might think that there was just something they were doing wrong because their symptoms came 2-3 months after the fact that they gave birth, that they just started to have these symptoms. So please know and understand that postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety doesn't necessarily begin right after you've given birth in the thick of those transitions. It can come several months later. And to help recognize those symptoms and to have people help you be on the lookout for those symptoms even months down the line, because that can be when it begins for you. And of course, at that time, it's so important to seek help from your healthcare team as well as your loved ones around you. But know that it can happen a little bit later than right away, and that's okay too. Another thing that kind of piggybacks right off of that is it is really nice to have your journey as a new mother and your postpartum experience normalized by other mothers. Checking in and sharing your experience with other new mamas that have walked this path before you is so helpful to know that you are not alone and that a lot of what you're feeling and experiencing is normal. That is so important. But at the same time, if you have that gut feeling that what you're going through, the feelings you're having, the thoughts you're having, some of the things you are able to do and not able to do, if you feel like that is a bit beyond what a normalized experience is, don't be afraid to reach out to your healthcare team or to your loved ones for support. I had a lot of wonderful mamas share with me a lot about their experience, and I could relate in so many ways. And it was so nice to hear that a lot of the things I was going through were temporary and that they were really normal things to go through when my life had just been turned upside down in the most beautiful way. But at the same time, when I was kind of in the thick of trying to figure out if I was maybe having some postpartum depression or if it was more of like a normal experience, I had a lot of individuals say, it'll get better once the baby's sleeping through the night, or you won't even feel any of this when your baby's napping and you're getting more sleep. All you need is more sleep. Well, I got to the point where I was getting more sleep. My baby was sleeping through the night, and I was starting to feel worse and worse. So at that point, I kind of had this gut feeling that it was more than what people were trying to normalize for me. And that's when I started to reach out to my healthcare team to get some more support on attacking and coping with some of those symptoms. So while hearing from others and mamas normalizing that experience for you is such a beautiful thing, if you're having maybe doubts or just that gut feeling in your heart that this is a little bit more than a normalized experience, or if you're not sure, definitely reach out to your healthcare team. There is no shame in doing that, as you can get a lot of support in that way. And I know I really needed it, so I'm glad I did. Okay, so the last thing I will wrap up with is something that tons of people told me about, but I never would have understood and known how real it was until I got there, is that this is truly the most beautiful experience I have ever gone through, and you don't want to miss out on 1 second. I wish I would have understood the gravity of what I was entering into and how much my heart would be filled from this. I knew I would love my baby, and I knew that I would love being a mother, and that it would be a lot of adjusting and a lot of learning, but I knew it was something that obviously we wanted to grow our family, and it was something I wanted to do. So I had that understanding, but I never had that true mental capacity and heart capacity to understand just how much you could love this baby and how much you could love this new part of your identity. So for me, it's so important now for me to not miss out on 1 second. I'm trying to do everything I can to, when I'm with my baby, be fully present with my son, to eliminate other distractions, to find ways of maybe better balancing work and home life. Other things can wait. The laundry can pile up. It's piling up right now. I fully now get it that you don't want to miss out on 1 second, because they're changing by the day. They're doing so many new things. It brings me so much joy when I'm fully present with him, just emotionally and physically, and can take in all those moments, because it's bonding for the two of us too. And for me, it makes me feel like I am getting the most out of this experience and giving him the most out of this experience. So when people tell you it is truly the most beautiful experience of your life and that you won't want to miss out on 1 second, it is so true. So please take that into consideration when you are trying to make plans for how many hours you're going to be returning to work, who's going to be watching your baby, what your nighttime routines are going to be like, if your spouse is going to be helping you a lot. Just really take that into consideration, because while people told me this all the time, I could have never understood how real that was until I got there. Thanks for tuning into this video. It's a little bit different than what I've been doing more recently in terms of grocery hauls, what I eat in a day, but a lot of my life right now is mama life. And so being postpartum and adjusting to that role in my life has a huge effect on my physical health and a huge effect on my mental health too. Hopefully some of these things you can keep in your mind a little bit more if you're approaching this season of life, or if you're already in this season of life, you can kind of hear and maybe relate to it, and know that you're not the only one going through that, or that you can give yourself permission to maybe make some adjustments that would better help you cope either physically or emotionally with this time period. In the future, I'm going to share a little bit more of an in-depth video on mentally coping with weight gain, weight loss, pre and postpartum, as someone that had previously lost 97 pounds. I'll also be filming a little bit more of an in-depth video about postpartum depression and just my journey through it, both from a physical and emotional standpoint. So look out for that in the future. I've got some grocery hauls planned coming up in the more immediate future. Be sure to hit the fancy subscribe button below if you want to keep up with my shenanigans. And as always, thanks for visiting, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.